I went to college and got a BA in acting.
I went to college and got a BFA in acting.
And now we're working actors, and we want to share with you the pros and cons of doing so in case you're considering going to college.
And if you should even go.
My name is Belgica, and I graduated from Cal State East Bay in the Bay Area in California in 2013 with a BA in theater with an emphasis in acting and dance.
Hi, my name is Neil Kelly. I went to Boston University. I have a BFA in acting with a concentration in musical theater from there. I'm the class of 2021. Some of my credits include Netflix's Pain Hustlers with Emily Blunt, Chris Evans, Captain O'Hara, Tell Me Lies on Hulu. I've been on NBC. Just look at the IMDb or my Instagram or whatever if you want to see everything.
And I forgot to say my credits. I've been in like a ton of short films. I've done so much independent film, web series, of course student films, a ton of regional commercials, and my ultimate goal is to be a series regular on a mockumentary show like Abbott Elementary or The Office. Some of the pros of going to college and getting a BA specifically in acting, or just studying in a more formal university as an actor. I really liked the fact that I moved out of my parents' house in order to learn more about myself and really get real life exposure.
Just having an impetus to get out of the house is a good thing, start to grow as an adult. Mm-hmm. At the same time, COVID hit when I was in school, and I actually went back to my parents' house, and then I had a weird opposite reaction where I was like, wow, I can learn a lot from my parents. Which is I needed to get out first to have that realization.
I also had so many opportunities to perform because it was a smaller theater program. It's the same people were auditioning, and we had a ton of performances. Every year we had the senior projects, and the seniors were allowed to cast anybody from any year. So my freshman year, I performed in a senior project. Mm-hmm. We had extracurricular plays like the Vagina Monologues. I directed them one year. I acted in them many years. I help produce it. It was just such a tight-knit community, and at the same time we got to do basically everybody was in every play. There was summer school where you could be in plays as well, and you were encouraged to create your own stuff. So if you wanted to create a new curriculum or something, they were sure, let's do it.
Wow.
Or
that's crazy.
I mean, there was of course a process. They wanted students to get on stage and take initiative, always having an opportunity to perform. Not to say that every time I got to be the lead, but if I wanted an opportunity to perform, it was there. And a lot of my classes were about other things and not just acting. I had a class on acting for Shakespeare. Mm-hmm. That was really hard. And then I also had I took costume design and set design and set actual construction of it, and we got to learn so much. And everybody who was studying theater in general had to have at least one credit where they were stagehands. So we had the opportunity to learn a lot about the world of acting, and that's one of the reasons that I ended up working in different costume shops for 10 years. And I was a wardrobe master, so I ended up dressing a lot of people while they were going to perform in theater, and I was how can I get up there? Everybody sees me now as a costumer.
But that's amazing that you have all those other crafts and stuff, and I'm sure all of that can help with self-tapes. Mm-hmm. I mean, the fact that you know how to make a character look a certain way, the behind the scenes stuff. I mean, look at you're doing YouTube, you have kind of your hand in everything, and that's nice to have that kind of background. Yeah. Be able to make your own stuff. Yeah. I think that's super empowering.
What about you? How was it for you performance-wise? Because we had to audition, of course. Right. But it didn't feel super competitive. Was yours?
Getting into school, super competitive. But once you're in it, it is more of a bonding experience with your group of people. It's a very tight-knit group of people. When you're doing acting classes and voice and speech classes where you're just crying about your traumas and all of that, you learn a lot about each other. So if anything, it's bonding, at least in my program. That's something to be mindful of, especially if you're doing your research for school. Mm-hmm. Any place can be toxic, so find out if yours is before you go.
Try and see if maybe there's anybody that went to that school that you can talk to, find them on Instagram, see if they tagged the school, and see whoever you can talk to that was there the most recently, so you can get a recent perspective.
You need to be taught a skill set for the professional world, and it could be way different than making good theater. You can make good theater in a community theater, but you can also be auditioning for something more high level that has thousands and thousands of people applying. And if you don't have the expertise to know how to maneuver that, rather than just being able to make a good character or make a good production with, you know, couple weeks worth of work, that's a very different skill. Graduating school, you realize, oh, I have these pages to memorize by tonight and put a performance together by tonight, and not 2 months to put on a show.
In my experience, professors just treated me like a student, you know, and like sometimes in class, our homework would be memorize this monologue because you're going to come in and perform it. Some of my fellow students, you know, they wouldn't memorize it, and the teacher would be like, okay, you want to just read it off the page or do it next time? And I was like,
no.
And I wanted the teachers to like push us more, because if the same students that were in the acting class, if they were in a professional environment, maybe like 1 or 2 of us would get cast and everybody else would be like, get out of here, like you're not doing enough, you know? So I do wish that there was more pressure for us, even though we did have a lot going on. Like I would be in classes from like 9 a.m. Classes and rehearsals from like 9 a.m. to like 10:30 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and then Fridays was a little bit more chill. So we did have so much going on already, but I just wish that because I was the most interested in acting, there was more pressure in that specific area so that I can be a better actor coming out.
Yeah, here, I'm gonna move. I think the sun's reflecting off the...
Oh, shoot! Oh my god, it was already 13 minutes.
You're kidding.
It goes so fast. I didn't have a plan B, which now as like a person who has had lots of experience, I've been acting for 16 plus years, and I'm like, wow, I wish that I had something that would make me a decent amount of money in addition to acting. And this isn't something I learned until like way later. Because when I started acting, I was so like, this is plan A, there cannot be a plan B, because if there's a plan B, I'm gonna fail and I'm gonna be an actor. And it's just like the reality is that it's not going to happen for most of us.
The thought process that they try and instill in you is that like it's acting or bust, and that's just not true. So you want to make sure you have skills that actually can support you in other ways, financially, and especially when you're starting off, that's not most likely going to come from acting. Huge pro for me was that I wanted the all-American experience at college. I wanted to go to university. I wanted to be hanging out on the quad. I wanted to go party and be young and be dumb and just have a good time. Like, I needed that, if I'm being honest. Like, I was very straight-laced in high school, like, very reserved. I needed that environment to get me out of the house and get me to just go interact with people.
Yeah.
And I feel like college for me was a good stepping stone to the real world, where in the real world, you gotta reach out to people. You gotta make friends. You gotta really put yourself out there more and more, because you're not being put in these succinct environments to allow you to meet people. College was a good stepping stone to be in that, you know, bubble that's a little bigger than high school, that I still have to push myself to meet people, but at the same time, I'm not scared.
Yeah. And college is hard. Like, the classes are hard. I remember being like, whoa, this is a lot of homework, this is a lot of reading, this is a lot of everything, and I'm in classes all the time. I also wanted the good old American experience, because our parents always are like, at least my parents were like, go to college.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, fine, but I'm gonna go to college for acting, and they weren't ecstatic, but at the end of the day, they weren't paying for it.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm gonna make the decisions, because I'm not gonna accept any money. Not that they had any money to give me, but I was like, this is my choice, this is my life.
Yeah.
And I appreciate them so much for wanting me to do otherwise. But I also thought I wanted a party.
Yeah.
And then I got there and I was like, I don't know about partying. I would go party, but I wouldn't really like drink.
Yeah, and that's important too, though, is like you also kind of learn your skills and what you want, even in socialization settings, you know? I think that's important. I think even just simple things like joining clubs.
Yes.
It's like you could join a knitting club and make friends and socialize that way. And if that's what you find out about yourself, that, you know, I really enjoy just sitting down with people in a quiet environment and like taking out my needles.
So there's definitely a lot of freedom in going to college, but you should do it with as much caution as possible, because at the end of the day, we were some wild just teenagers trying to figure out life, you know, which is insane to think about.
Yeah. Insane that they put like a bunch of 18-year-olds together, 17 and 18-year-olds together, being like, all right, Good luck. So what I really loved in college too, at least from an acting perspective, was that you got to be in this kind of void for a little bit of just, you know, I'm going to try things out. I'm going to take risks. And, you know, yeah, you're supposed to always do that in your acting. Take a risk, be different, you know, whatever. But at the same time, at least me, 17 or 18-year-old me, the thought of taking a risk was so scary. And to actually grow in your art form, I think that's super important to be able to do that. So I felt like being in a tight-knit group of people allowed me to form these bonds that I wouldn't be judged in the same way as if I went right into the professional world and everything is just audition. And it's just people constantly giving you not giving you feedback, giving you nothing, and you just constantly putting stuff out there. That can play a huge mind game. Like I could just get in my head about, oh, did I do that right? Was that okay? Which still happens to me now. Yeah. But less so with at least the confidence that it gave me of, I've tried this before. I've taken these risks before. It's gone well. Yeah. I've taken these risks before. It's gone bad.
Yeah. Because in college, they actually take the time to tell you things, or you have the ability to ask them, and they will respond of like, can you give me feedback on this audition? You know, I've been working on it or whatever. And it's just like a learning environment. So you do feel safe, you know, around your peers, around hopefully your professors as well. And then when you get to the professional world, they don't have time to give you feedback. They're auditioning so many people, and like, they just simply do not get paid to give you feedback. So they're not going to, because you guys, they have lives. So if they took the time to be quote unquote the kindest they can be, they wouldn't have time for their families or even to like sleep.
Think about how long it takes you to write an email. Now think about how many emails they'd have to write.
So many.
Too many. I felt like I was behind. Like, I felt like I got into the professional world and there were all of these people who just didn't do the 4 years in a void that I just did. I loved my little bubble. And then I got out of it and I went, oh crap, I was in a little bubble. And these other people were just working for the last 4 years, making connections, auditions, building up their resumes. And they have some stats that are a little beefier than mine. And I feel like I'm playing catch up. Yeah. You're not actually done with school. When you're done with school. I graduated, I thought I was gonna be like out of classes, now I audition, now I get the roles, now I, you know, live my life.
Once I graduated, I had this high of like, oh my gosh, I did it, I'm gonna be a professional actor now. And then I was like, oh, wait. Once I was looking into auditions, I was like, I don't think I actually learned how to act. At least not super well. Like, I got all the basics, like I got the discipline of like rehearsing a bunch of memory, analyzing your script and all of that. But then when I went to auditions, I was like, whoa, they're so good at auditioning. Whoa, they're so good at acting. And it's when I realized like, oops, I needed more.
I was right back into classes because there's so many things you don't know still. Yeah. You know, and you got to fill in the gaps in your education because every school is going to have gaps. You can't learn everything there is to know about a trade in only 4 years.
Yeah, especially if you don't end up working in like the market that you thought you were going to work in. Like I studied theater, acting, and dance. I was in a few plays, short plays, and then I went straight to camera because nobody in theater was saying yes to me. So then I really didn't know what I was doing.
I really thought I was done. I really thought I was done.
Like after grueling 4 years of university, you're like, I am done with school, I am done with homework. In acting, probably in most professions, no, you are not done. You always have to get better. You're always improving. And that's, I think, also what brings you a lot of happiness in your career is when you continue to learn more and not just like do your minimum.
Once you get your degree, it's really just the start, you know, and that's something I didn't know. And, you know, and with that being just the start, it also means it's just the start of the money giving to it, because if you're doing more classes and more education, that's more money when you get to whatever market you're going to go into.
Headshots, expensive.
Very.
Makeup, hair, wardrobe, like they're casting websites, 10% to your agency, $200 to have an IMDb account a year, private coaching for auditions or going to a self-tape plays if you want, you know, if you don't have this area or silence in your own space. So there's like, the bills are endless. You almost have to be rich to be an actor.
Like lightweight,
rich or in debt.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's so sad.
Oh my god. Yeah. Sorry. I don't mean to laugh at that. It's just like so relatable that I can't help
Yeah.
but laugh at the
You gotta
situation.
laugh at it.
Now we're each going to give you our honest opinion if we think that you should go to college for acting. Do you want me to go first?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, I'll go first. Absolutely no. I'm so sorry, but like, if you want to be an actor, I have had so much more growth, and I don't know if it's because I'm, a little bit older than I was like 18 when I started college, but I've had so much more growth and openness to absorbing like vulnerability and acting skills in acting studios where they're just doing giving you some acting. You go there a few hours a week, and then you have homework. I would say go to college and study something that you are interested in that will support your acting, like business, like psychology, even. Maybe be in tech and not in medicine, because medicine is very physically and mentally demanding. So choose a career where you can get something more guaranteed that you will have an income, because you might not have an income at all when you graduate as an actor. And then in addition to that, while you college, try to take an acting class. I know this is only going to be more money, but if you can't afford like a consistent acting class that you can go to during your Christmas vacation or spring break, take a workshop, like study acting during those years so you can still be developing. But if you do want to be an actor for the long run, like for your career, I would say treat it as not even a marathon, an ultra marathon. I think those are like 100 miles and more.
Oh my gosh.
Because you are only going to get better at acting, and the roles are only going to get more like juicy and intense, I believe, as you get older. So do not feel pressured to be famous by the time you're like 21 or 15 or whatever. Approach it in the way that you're going to have the happiest life all around, not just like, I'm going to be happy because I'm going to be famous and rich. Like that's not real. Think about it a little bit more logically than that. I went on, I rambled.
No. Valid response, good response. I say go. Take everything that you just said into account. If you are able to financially go, and you know that, and if you also are the kind of personality where you feel like you might need a little bit of that bubble just to grow as an artist, I would say go ahead and do it. But you also have to do it knowing that there's going to be gaps in your education. So whatever you think that price is that you're paying for, more money is going to be coming that you need to be dishing out. That's all going to be part of your normal life. So budgeting is a huge part of this, especially with education getting so expensive now. You really need to factor that in. But
living expenses
too, because most of the time you're living in cities or city adjacents. That's pretty expensive, you know? I would say go if you can, because I loved it. I loved my experience there, but at the same time, plan a little farther. Plan for the ultra marathon.
Yeah, and also if you're rich, please go to college. Yeah. If you have a full ride, if your parents are going to pay for everything, sure. Go, like, so fun. Yes. Yeah. Tag us in your pictures. Don't do anything illegal.
Yeah. And if you're not super rich, but you still want that kind of environment, I would recommend actually looking abroad for college. A lot of abroad programs in Ireland or England actually have cheaper tuition, because a lot of the schools there have cheaper tuition, but still great education. Something to think about, people.
Okay, well, if you do want to go to college for acting, I do support you. Go ahead and do it. I say make sure that you choose your school somewhere that you will want to eventually work, so that the connections that you make, you can immediately like start, using the connections. And also, if you are wondering if you should get a BA in acting or theater or a BFA, we talked about that in his channel. He also has a YouTube channel about acting. So come here and talk some more.
Let us educate even more, or just decide if it's even right for you.
Yeah.